They spent decades engineering your food, your education, your environment, and your identity. You want to know what they couldn't engineer? The part of you that knew something was off from the beginning. This story is about the one gift you possessed that was never for sale, never on the curriculum, and when applied to life experience, no technology can match it, and it's been with you your entire life. I'd love to take credit for this, but I can't. The homie invited me and a few other families on an outing. We met up at a spot where the kids could play in the water, chase hermit crabs, just be feral little human beings for a day without having to worry about alligators and rednecks. All the kids were somewhere between 5 and 8 years old. I rented a kayak so I could take them paddling through the creek a few at a time. Now, I gotta be honest with y'all. Me and the homie cool, but I torment this man's children. Lovingly. That same day, his oldest daughter was nervous about getting in the kayak, so I watched him coach her through it. Watched him help her find her own courage. She got herself together and climbed in. And the moment we pushed off, I told her the shark I saw earlier wouldn't be a problem as long as she kept her feet out the water. With that one wisecrack, I'd undone her nervous system all over again. The first ride out, my son Brave and I got in. Brave's in the front, I'm in the back, and the other kids ain't ready yet. So we push off, but something about his life vest ain't sitting right. It's too big, so I bring us back to the dock to swap it out. When we return, my homie's daughter says she wants to sit in the front seat with the paddle, and right there, I fumbled it. Real quick, my name is Tijuana Jackson. I'm a clarity coach. If you working your ass off, stressing your ass off, or planning your ass off, but still don't seem to get nowhere, it has nothing to do with willpower or discipline. It's usually an emotional pattern running in the background that's quietly messing with your decisions and follow through. And those emotional blind spots are the real reason you remain stuck. I'm hosting a live 90-minute workshop where me and Romani help you identify the patterns that's holding up your progress. And we get you clear on the next steps you need to take so your emotional blind spots never cripple your potential again. You want to work with some real ones? Link is in the description. Now let's get back to the story. Instead of letting my homie's daughter sit in the front with the paddle, I told her something like, let Brave, my son, sit in the front because his legs ain't long enough to brace himself in the back, which is partially true. But it wasn't the real reason. The real reason was simple. Brave had already called it. He was already sitting there. He already had the paddle. The only reason we came back to the dock was because of his life vest. That seat was already his. I just didn't explain it clearly. So she took the paddle in the back seat. She was fine, but I wasn't. As a man who's been tortured by fuzzy communication for most of my life, I'm determined not to do the same to the people in my life, especially the little ones. I gave off partial truth and a reason to feel slighted. It wasn't the whole story, and somewhere in my chest I knew it. Even while everybody was laughing, even while the day was going great, even though she ended up riding and paddling in the front multiple times, that moment stayed with me like body odor. That's the thing about intuition. It don't care if the situation resolved itself. It doesn't care that nobody's crying. It just keeps sending the same signal. Something wasn't right. Something wasn't in alignment. So later that day, the kids had a hip-hop dance class together. And after class, I pulled my homie aside and asked him if I could speak to his daughter. He said yes. I said, guide me through this shit. I got down to her level, looked her in her eye, and told her the truth. I said, the real reason I asked you to sit in the back for the first ride on the kayak earlier today is because Brave had already called the front seat. That was his spot. The only reason we even came back to the dock was because I wasn't comfortable with how his life vest was fitting him. That was it. I should have said that in the moment. I didn't communicate it clearly, and I wanted to come back and tell you the real reason. She smiled, said thank you, and ran off to play, but her dad stopped her. He said, hold up, did you hear that? She said, yeah. Did you say thank you? She said, yeah. Then he asked her, does this feel safe to you right now? She thought about it, said yeah. He said, do you know why? She didn't have the words for it yet. She shook her head. And he said, you see that feeling you have right now? How does it feel? She said, it feels really good. And he said, when we talk to you about safety, this is what we mean. This is what it feels like. Remember this feeling. She was like, got it, and ran off. I stood there thinking about what I just witnessed, wondering what just happened. Because what I did didn't feel like a big deal to me. I just knew I hadn't been straight with a kid and wanted to clean that up. That was it. But watching him use that moment to anchor something in her, that hit different. So I asked him what that was really about. And he broke it down. He said, I'm all about teaching my kids to tune into their body, not just their head, their body. Because nobody taught us that. It was always a thinking process, never a feeling process. What is intuition? What is nervous system regulation? Nobody in our houses was teaching us that. So he tries to find moments where his kids can experience life as a feeling, not just something they intellectualize their way through. He even connected it to dance class. He said, you'll notice in dance class, some of my daughter's moves get very slow, like your merch sales. He always cracking on me about that because don't nobody buy my shit. But he said him and his wife have been encouraging his daughters to close their eyes and freestyle, abandon form, and feel the music. Not just follow the routine, not just follow the beat, but experience the vibrational impact the music has on their body. If you ain't never heard this before, don't feel bad about it. But nobody taught us that the discomfort we feel in certain places or in certain exchanges was data. My man grabbed my shoulder and said, in that moment, when you took the time to give my daughter that clarity, I could see it on her face, a smile I don't see often, not even with family. He said, at first I thought she was laughing at your big ass teeth, but nope, it's that warm smile she gets when somebody is affirming what she's feeling inside. He knew she felt safe and respected before she had words for it. So we stopped her. He brought her attention to it because the nervous system is sending us signals all day, telling us what to move toward, telling us what to get away from. But nobody taught us to pay attention to it. And that landed for me. I started thinking about what it felt like growing up in a house where certain things couldn't be questioned. Where if you push back, if you ask for clarity, if you challenge what an adult said, it led to volatility. Somebody raising their voice, somebody getting smacked. That's why I'm always flinching like a stray dog in the hood to this day. And over time, you stop expecting anything different. You stop expecting people to be transparent with you. You stop expecting accountability when somebody gets it wrong. Because in your environment, your emotions, your intuition was seen as an inconvenience rather than a priority. So your nervous system adjusts to the absence of clarity or emotional reassurance. And that absence becomes your baseline. Let me not bother nobody with my curiosity or my need to understand clearly. By the way, now would be a good time to hit that like button if you like something. And if you motivated as hell, hit that notification bell. But the only way this channel grows is if you share this with your folks. Bars, if a black 57-year-old man tells you this, please listen. I've carried my childhood perspectives into adult situations more times than I'm comfortable admitting. Not because I'm stupid, but because that's what I was calibrated to accept from birth. We accept what we become used to. Familiarity can feel safe even when it's unalive in your ass. Look at all these Stockholm Syndrome having Negroes. And here's what most of us learn to do instead of following our intuition. We learn bravado as a survival skill. We walk into a room that don't feel right, and instead of pausing or letting our body tell us what it's registering, we puff up. Instead of honoring our intuition, we turn on, get louder, and make the discomfort look like confidence. While our nervous system's still sending the original signal. Abort mission, strap up, pull out. Now you getting robbed and corn on the cob by the homies of the girl you met on the job. Your intuition was warning you, but you was too busy performing, engaging your ego, prioritizing your vices to receive what your intuition was trying to tell you. I'm probably gonna get blacklisted for saying this. In fact, I'm already blacklisted, which is why I only get subscribers when people share my content. But my point is, don't let this evil system of Satanism convince you that your pride is more important than your peace, or that prestige is more important than purpose, that status is more important than sanity. And whatever you do, don't let these cannibalistic devils disconnect you from your God-given intuition. Here's where niggas get defensive as a linebacker, but a lot of us now glorify dysfunction. We earn a living writing songs, books, and movies about it. We've used technology to showcase and monetize the worst aspects of us as a people. And that's only aided in normalizing shit we shouldn't even be tolerating. For instance, the relationships you stayed in too long because you didn't want to deal with the discomfort of change. Jobs that was eating you alive from the inside out. Environments and institutions you continue to subject yourself to despite their deteriorating sense of safety. Rooms you kept entering even though something in you knew every single time that you wasn't safe there. But nobody taught you that the discomfort was data. So you overrode it repeatedly until you couldn't even detect it no more. Shit, some of us had to override it for survival. That's not a coincidence. That's by design. They feed you, raise you, reward you, and penalize you based on the merit system of a culturally displaced, spiritually misaligned, manufactured value system that ain't got shit to do with you. And your intuition always knew something was off like a Mormon's condom. Some of the most self-defeating rhetoric I hear is talking about they was built for this. You ain't built for this. You was bred, sedated, and socially engineered for this. Physically, mentally, and financially impaired for this. That one statement proves you ain't even aware of this. So help me understand how the slave's supposed to steer the slave ship. Pause! You built for this? Please educate me. What the is this? What is the value of this facade to a God? We talk a lot about what was done to our communities through food, through education, through housing, through religion, through media, and the world is just not catching up on just how deliberate all of it was. They gets no pass. They only care because now they all getting the nigga treatment. But here go the piece that don't get talked about enough. What does systematic disconnection from self actually produce in a person over generations? Think about it. If you can get a population to stop trusting their own interior, if you can flood their environment with enough noise, enough manufactured urgency, enough external validation and external threats, eventually they outsource their intuition, their empathy, their perception entirely. They stop checking in with themselves. They start looking outside for every answer. And a person who don't trust their own intuition is a person who can be pointed in almost any direction. So they'll let media inform them of what they should be outraged by, what they should be curious about, what they supposed to prioritize and stand for. And that's why most of us keep looking to this government-run, shill-infested propaganda programming for information. But here's what none of that programming could touch. All those decades of engineering what we eat, what we learn, what we see ourselves as, what we believe about our own worth, none of it could actually destroy your intuition. It could suppress it, bury it under layers of conditioning and performance and survival behavior, but it couldn't engineer it out of you because they didn't put it in you in the first place. That's the part that was never for sale, never on the curriculum, never emulated by science. When it comes to human experiences, the most advanced technology on this planet ain't artificial intelligence. It's your intuition. You want to know the science behind this shit? You can read it on your own time. I ain't your librarian. Links is in the description. Look, dog, everything I talk about on this channel boils down to one thing: getting you to trust your own process enough to follow through on the things you say you want out of life. Me and my homie Romani Malco host a 90-minute live workshop where we help you identify the emotional blind spots that sabotage your follow-through and cripple your potential. And we won't let you leave until you know exactly what to do about it. You want to get this work? Link is in the description. Our nervous system's been keeping score this whole time. The question is whether or not we've been listening. And I ask this as a man who spent a significant portion of his life confusing fearful messaging with intuition, confusing insulation with safety. Bravado is not strength. Bravado is what men do when you've been trained to override your intuition. And the older I get, the more I understand that the real work isn't just developing new skills. It's also unlearning the habit of overriding the most sophisticated navigation system you were ever given. Yo intuition, not theirs, not AI, yo intuition. And part of what that means for me right now was going back and doubling down on teaching my son what my homie is teaching his daughters. That the intuition he feels in his chest is real. That when something doesn't feel safe, he don't gotta perform his way through it to prove something to somebody. He can stop. He can ask for clarity. He can check in with his spirit. He can ask himself a question. Does this actually feel safe? Not, does this make sense? Not, am I being too sensitive? Does this feel safe in my body? That's not a soft question. That's the most important question most of us was never taught to ask. Most of us didn't grow up with somebody stopping the moment to ask, does this feel safe to you? And the absence of that one question becomes your gateway to accepting abusive friendships, abusive lovers, abusive marriages, abusive jobs, abusive language, and the list get longer with age like dope fiend titties. You can call it whatever you want, but we grew up in environments where if you question an adult, you'd catch a look or catch worse. So we stopped asking. We stopped being curious. We stopped checking in with ourselves, and eventually we stopped expecting it from other people too. That's not a small thing to undo. That takes years of intentional work. For instance, I believe the propaganda so deep, I really felt inadequate about not having a college education, not having a degree, and the lies and gaslighting within my household throughout childhood was my stupid nigga starter pack. I felt so insecure about my lack of education that I would pretend to be smart. Want to know what that looks like? I abandoned curiosity. Had to be the know-it-all In other words, a fool. By the time I realized this, I'd already ruined a couple solid relationships, lost about 10 business opportunities, and was on the brink of teaching this to my children. And for those of us who are parents right now, the work is making sure our kids don't have to unlearn what we had to learn. Like when my 5th grade teacher told me all Africans contributed to the world was arts and crafts, and I wasn't allowed to challenge that shit. Then, after my daddy blew her back out over the summer, she turned into a wannabe Patty Hearst. Just make sure your kids know how to read their own nervous system. Teach them that their curiosity is still valid even when adults want them to stop asking questions. I mean, you might have to come up with an age-appropriate way to explain what is before somebody on Roblox do it, but it doesn't have to be some big formal thing. My homie didn't schedule a lesson with his daughter. It was just a moment, a regular Tuesday. He saw an opening and he took it. That's what we all should be out here doing, building internal reference points for our kids and for ourselves. I'm gonna drop this video here because it's a perfect iteration of what I'm talking about, but click it because it's gonna go fast.